In this lecture, we are going to learn fundamental C++ data types and how to create variables. So imagine you're in charge of a program for students' examination. So first thing I want to do for my program is to greet the student. For this purpose, I'm going to use our Hello World program and modify it a little bit, writing Hello David. Assume that my student name is David. For the next line, I want to remind my student that he's actually having an exam today. So let's type to the console, you are having exam in history, and put here end line once again. Then I want my program to assign some ticket to our student, ticket A, B, C, or D. So the next line will be, you are having ticket B, and line. And finally, I want to say my students how much time he has to finish his work. So you are having 60 minutes. And line. Let's build and run our program to check that everything is okay. And you can see the result in the console. Hello David, you are having exam in history, you are having ticket B, and 60 minutes to finish your work. The next logical step will be to create a questionnaire for our student. I want to skip this step for now, but I want to leave a reminder for me that I need to do it later. And for this purpose, I'm going to use another very useful feature of C++ and many other programming languages, comments. Comments is basically non-executable code, the code that compiler will ignore. To leave a comment in your source code, just put / signs, and everything you are going to type after / signs, compiler will ignore and not execute. So I will leave myself a reminder here to do questions for students. And you can use comments for many purposes. For example, if I work with other developers, they want to understand what's going on in my code, or I'm going to visit my program later, I can forget what I was writing here. So it's always a good idea to leave a comment that explain what this piece of the code stands for. So I will leave the comment for my first part of the code is greet the student and give him or her assignment. Okay, and if now once again we build and run our program, you can see result is the same. These comments have no influence on our code. If at some step I want to temporarily remove some part of my code, but I think that I might use it later, I can once again comment this piece of the code. So for example, I'm not sure if I need this last line, you're having 60 minutes, so I just comment it. And once again, let's build and run our program. And you can see the result. This line is now ignored, and we have only first 3 lines of our code. And if, for example, I want to hide several lines of the code, of course I can put this / sign before every string, or alternatively I can use a multi-string comment. To hide several strings, just put / and asterisk at the beginning of the part of the code you want to hide, and asterisk / at the end of the part of the code you want to hide. And if now once again we build and run our program, you can see the result. Only hello David is executed, and our code we hide with the comment is ignored. Now let's go back to our initial view of our program, and after questionnaire I want also give the result to our students, how many points he or she has for this exam. So cout you got 4.85 points and line. And finally I want to say if the score is enough to pass exam. So my last row will be you are passed their exam, and I will write 0 for no and 1 for yes. And now let's build and run our program. Well, actually I want to separate these two blocks of the code, so let's add one more end line here. Once again, build and run it. And you can see the result of the program execution. We greet our student, hello David, say him that you have an exam in history, you have ticket B, you have 60 minutes, and then at the end we say to him that you got 4.85 points and that he successfully passed the exam. So this is great, but unfortunately not all students' names are David, and they of course have different tickets, different topics, and at the end they would have a different result. So I need somehow modify this program to be able to change this part of the string to put different names, different topics, different ticket number, and for this purpose we are going to use variables. So let's for now split our hello world, and ideally instead of David I want to use some variable, say x, that will contain a different name of different students depending on who is having exam. So how can I use variable in C++? First thing I need to do is to declare the variable, to say our compiler what type of the variable we are going to use and what will be the name of the variable and which value we are going to store in it. There are many very nice data types you can use in C++, but for storing text or words, ideal is data type called string. So the string will be the data type of my variable x. Of course I can name my variable x, but it's a very bad name. When you write your program, you should think about your future, you should think about your colleagues and give variables some meaningful names. So I'm going to name my variable student name. This string I just created is called declaration of variable. So here we declared the variable with the type string and with the name student name. When we declare variable, compiler allocates some part of the computer memory where we are going to store it. Next you can assign your variable, so to put some information in it, what exactly you want to store. So let's say I am having a student called Samantha, and this way we assign value to our variable. Let's now try to run our program and see the result. So build and run, and you can see that now instead of David we are having student Samantha. So our output now is hello Samantha. If for some reason I want to change the student name in the exam process, I can do it right here in the code and change student name. Let's say instead of Samantha we have now Julia. So this way we rewrite the value of our variable. Now instead of Samantha, student name stands for Julia. Let's check it, build and run our code, and indeed now instead of Samantha we have Julia. Now I want to do the same with the topic of our exam. Instead of history I want to use a variable that I can change, assigning different topics like history, physics, math and so on. So I'm going to create a variable. Once again it will be string, and I will call it topic. And if I already know the value of my variable, I don't need to split its declaration and assignment. I can already write, let's say we have exam in physics. So in this way you can declare a variable and immediately initialize it with some value. Well, of course it's more preferable to declare and initialize your variable at the same time, because in this way you already know what is stored in this part of the memory that our compiler allocate for our variables. If we declare variable without initialization, in more modern compiler you will just have empty variable. In older compiler you might have a variable that allocates some garbage that was left in that part of the memory that our compiler allocated. So always take care of your variables, don't leave them empty, and be sure that you assign them with the correct value. One more thing you should know about string that it's actually not the basic data type of C++. String is a class that actually is a container of characters. And string is already included in the iostream library. That's why I can use it in this program. If, for example, I exclude iostream library, C++ compiler will tell me, I don't know what is string, what kind of class is string. It's not the basic C++ data type. If you have such situation, or you work with some very old version of the compiler, you need to include it manually. Once again, write the word include and use header string. And in this way, you will connect string class to our program. We don't need to do this here because iostream already includes string, so it will be double inclusion. And now let's discuss what are actually basic C++ data types. So string is a collection of characters, and this one character is basic C++ data type. The name of this data type is char. And here I have perfect example where I can use char because I need variable for the ticket. So I will create char ticket and I will initialize it with the letter C. So you might notice the difference between string and char, that you frame string in the double quotes and char only in the single quotes. This basic data types, char, occupies 1 byte of the memory. So those who know what is 1 byte, byte is 8 bits. Bit can have value 0 or 1. So as a result, there are 256 possible values for the char. This is enough for all big and small letters, for all numbers, for signs, for special signs. And in most of the cases, we are going to use strings because it's a little bit complicated to create a variable for each sign, and string is very helpful in this way. But if you have situation where you can work with the char, do this, because in this way you save memory a lot. Because here, if I create another string for this ticket letter, I will once again create some piece of the memory, I will call for the string class, and if I use the basic data type char, I will avoid all the steps and I will optimize my program and save memory. So here, instead of string b, we are going to put char variable ticket. And here, instead of the history, I forgot to include topic. And let's check that everything is okay, because char is something new for us. I will build and run my program. And you can see the result. Once again, we have the name of our student Samantha, new topic physics, and she's having ticket C, where C is our char variable. Char stands for character. Now I want to create variable for the 60 minutes, because you know different exams can have different lengths. Okay, now I want to replace 60. And for this purpose, I'm going to use another basic data type in C++ called integer. Integer is a data type to hold whole numbers. So we are going to call our variable exam time. And let's say our exam is going to take 45 minutes. So 60 I will replace with our new variable. So as I already told you, integer is data type dedicated to store whole numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0 and negative ones as well. It doesn't store fractions or decimal numbers. For this purpose, we are going to use another data type. One more thing you should know about integer, that when you create variable with the type integer, compiler allocate 4 bytes of the memory for this variable. So integer value is also restricted. If you want to work with some huge integer numbers, like I don't know, several trillions, you need to use different data types called long integer. And if, for example, you know that your numbers will be small, you can use another data type called short integer. Short integer is integer for which compiler allocate only 2 bytes of the memory. So if you want to be efficient, for example, here we actually can do it, because I don't think that exam time can be like several billion minutes. We can use short integer here to save memory. We're going to talk in more details about memory allocation for different data types in more advanced lessons. For now, if we need some variable to store whole numbers, let's just use integer. Let's now move to the part where we tell our student his or her final results. And you can see here we have another part of the string that will be nice to replace with a variable. It's amount of points our student got. So once again, let's change our code a little bit, and here I'm going to create some variable. Let's already give it some names like score, and let's declare and initialize our variable. Since it's floating point number, we can't use integer, and for the float pointing number, C++ actually give you a choice. You can use float data type or double data type. So what's the difference between float data type and double data type? The difference is, once again, its size. When we use float data type, we are going to allocate 4 bytes of the memory to store our variable. When we use double data type, we are going to allocate 8 bytes. So since here we don't need high precision, I'm going to use float data type. But if you see a future in finance or science, and you need very high precision of your calculation, in this case, always use double data type, because float data type is not for high precisions. Okay, we're almost finished. We have one last variable to create. It's a variable that is going to have only 2 possible values, 0 and 1. And this type of the variable called bool or boolean variable. Bool is just one bit of the memory that contains 0 or 1. It's a very nice data type for logical operations when, for example, some statement should be true or false. So here we have situation where our student passed exam or failed exam. So passed exam is true or false. So I'm going to use bool variable final result to tell my students if he or she passed exam or not. So I think 2.45 is very low score, so I will initialize my variable with 0, or you can also initialize it with false, which is the same for the bool variable. And here, once again, I will split my string. Okay, now let's see the result. What we have here. In the first part of our program, we greet the student. We created a variable for the student's name, for the exam topic, ticket he or she going to have, and the amount of minutes he or she going to have to finish exam. And for the second part of our program, we created variable to store the final score of our students and the result of the exam, if he or she passed or failed this exam. You can see that we initialized all variables or assigned some value to this variable, and now let's finally build and run our program and see our result. Okay, so you can see that all variables are successfully applied and inserted in our strings. Hello Samantha, you have an exam in physics. Ticket C, you have 45 minutes, I forgot space here, so be actually very accurate when you work with strings. And she got 2.45 points and she failed the exam. I hope that this lesson was very helpful for you. We learned how to create variables. We also discussed the basic C++ data types such as char, int, short, long, float, double, and boolean. We also learned how to use comments. And now I have home assignment for you. Create a program that will announce weather for the user every day. So you can, for example, say what is the kind of weather today, is it sunny or not, what's the temperature, what's the humidity level. You can use different variables for this purpose. Just use your imagination, and I'm going to wait for your code in the comment section.